What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. NFL training camp is starting this week for some of the NFL rosters. So what I wanted to do here in today's video is talk about one player from every NFL team that I'm going to be watching very closely at NFL training camp, because I think good performances or bad performances from these players could translate to massive Dynasty fantasy football ramifications. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. You don't want to miss any future content coming out this year. But without wasting any more time, let's hop right into today's video and let's talk about these training camp players. All right, so I'm going to be starting us off in the AFC East at the Buffalo Bills for our first team. The player that I'm going to be watching here is going to be James Cook. Cook had sat out of OTAs earlier this offseason while he was negotiating a new contract extension, but he chose to show up for the Bills' mandatory minicamp. It's reported that he will show up for training camp as well, but he's somebody that I'm going to be keeping my eye on because once he signs his contract, I assume his value is going to start trending back up in Dynasty Fantasy Football Leagues. Going to the Miami Dolphins, let's watch Jaylen Waddle. There's been a lot of chatter this offseason about Jaylen Waddle and how he's been standing out in practices, including praise for being the most impressive player at Miami Dolphins OTAs, with Tyreek Hill coming off of multiple wrist surgeries and going into the season at 31 years old. I'm watching Waddle closely because he is a sneaky buy in the off chance that Miami starts moving back to Waddle as the long-term wide receiver one. My New England Patriots take Etienne Chisholm III. Yes, you probably don't even know that name up to this point unless you're a degenerate like me, but it has been reported that Etienne Chisholm has been a standout wide receiver for the Patriots all spring and is definitely somebody that we should be monitoring. Chisholm is a UDFA slot wide receiver, and every few years or so we have one of these guys who flies completely under the radar for Dynasty and ends up making the 53-man roster and finding some relevance for fantasy football leagues. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Chisholm, especially with the lack of established wide receiver talent in the room and with Diggs likely not to be 100% yet at Patriots training camp. The New York Jets, I want to look at Breece Hall. He is a player where all eyes are going to be on Breece Hall, and I think that the Jets' run game is also kind of baked into this take as well. That's what I'm going to be watching at NFL training camp. Breece has been on record numerous times this offseason discussing how he thinks he is a three-down back and how he's excited to get back to work and show what he can do, but at the same time, head coach Aaron Glenn has discussed an RBBC approach with Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis to an extent. That said, the back and forth between the player and the coach speak, it is fun, but I want to see what actually happens once these players put pads on. Is it going to be Breece Hall? Because if he is a three-down back in this offense like he thinks he is, I do think he's a great value in Dynasty leagues right now. Let's go to the AFC North, talk about the Baltimore Ravens. I'm watching Mark Andrews. Now, the reason why is because both Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews have been very vocal this offseason about how they don't like the way that people have been talking about Mark Andrews after the tight end's bad game there in the playoff loss that they had against the Buffalo Bills. Now, Andrews himself has even said that he's excited to remind people who he is as a player, and with support from his quarterback, I wouldn't be surprised to see a bounce back season from Mark Andrews, even if he's a little bit more touchdown dependent than we would like to see him be these days. Going to the Cincinnati Bengals, Tahj Brooks is a player that I'm going to be watching. The Bengals, they drafted rookie running back Tahj Brooks in the 6th round of the NFL draft, and I believe that Tahj has a real shot here to push Zach Moss for the running back 2 job. Now, Brooks could be a good complementary piece here to Chase Brown, and if he wins that RB2 job, I think he has the chance to become one of the sneakiest handcuffs in fantasy football. At that point, I do think he's a long shot, but I'm stashing him on my taxi squad right now and watching him very closely as we approach week 1. Cleveland Browns, it's going to be Dylan Sampson. I do think with the recent Quinshon Judkins news of being charged with a misdemeanor domestic battery, I do think it opens up a lot more uncertainty in this backfield than we would like to admit. Jerome Ford, he's already kind of been rumored as the quote-unquote starter for the early season at least, so I am going to be watching to see if Sampson can do enough in the short term to push him for some meaningful early season reps, because if he can get on the football field, I think he has the talent to produce early on. Going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, Roman Wilson is the player to watch. We're just a year removed from the Steelers selecting Roman Wilson in the 3rd round of the 2024 NFL Draft. Wilson was a big riser during that year's draft process, but unfortunately he had his rookie season voided by injury, and the reality of the situation is that Wilson has now been forgotten about in Dynasty Fantasy Football formats, and this Steelers depth chart is still very, very thin behind DK Metcalf, so I will be watching to see if Wilson can have an impressive training camp, potentially push for the wide receiver 2 role, and be Aaron Rodgers' short yardage PPR type of guy. Let's go to the AFC South. I'm going to be watching Houston Texans running back quarterback, Joe Mixon. Mixon, he suffered 2 ankle injuries last season that really did seem to bother him at the end of the year. And even worse, in early offseason workouts this year, he was seen walking around in a walking boot after dealing with another ankle injury. Now, this current injury is said to be unrelated to the other 2 that he dealt with last year, but summer injuries are no joke. And when it comes to early season production, summer injuries can derail that very rapidly and very quickly. He seems to be a player right now that's trending up, but Mixon is going to be somebody that I need to see be completely healthy throughout training camp if I want to have any confidence in his early season production. And if he's still banged up throughout camp, Woody Marks is probably a guy that I would keep on my radar. Let's go to the Indianapolis Colts. I have Anthony Richardson as the player to watch. During spring practices, it was reported that Anthony Richardson aggravated the previous AC joint injury that required surgery in 2023 in his throwing shoulder, and he would miss future practices. Now, since then, A-Rich has said that he went and got a second opinion and said he would be there for training camp, but when it comes to head coach Shane Steichen, he has seemed a lot less committal to Anthony Richardson. This quarterback battle in Indianapolis is going to be something that I think is critical to watch throughout training camp if you want to try and decipher who is going to be the Colts week 1 starter. And let's just be real, I think Daniel Jones is going to be a better fantasy football quarterback for the receiving options than Anthony Richardson has been. Let's go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm watching Travis Etienne Jr. Most people are going to want to watch Travis Hunter, and for good reason. I think he's going to be very, very exciting. But this running back room is one of the most intriguing in football for me. I do think that Travis Etienne is a player that's kind of been forgotten about in this backfield, at least for the last few months of the summer. But as of now, it is being reported that Bhayshul Tuten has kind of struggled a little bit in the spring practices, some fumbling, maybe some pass blocking issues that he's been dealing with. And Etienne is actually the one receiving some praise from head coach Liam Cohen. If Etienne is truly the running back 1A in this offense, I do think he's a massive value in 2025, and he'll probably be looked at as one of the biggest summer overreactions from the Dynasty community. Let's go to the Tennessee Titans. I want to talk about Tony Pollard. Pollard was pretty much an inefficient bell cow last year for the Titans. He finishes the running back 8 in total carries. However, he rarely found the end zone for the Titans. It's not like they were really scoring a lot of touchdowns anyways, and he did see Tyjae Spears take some of the third down work away. Now, Titans coach Brian Callahan has said that he would like to take a little bit more work away from Tony Pollard here this year, probably play Spears a little bit more evenly with Pollard in 2025. And if we see Spears start to impress in training camp, I would be very nervous about Tony Pollard potentially fading away into dynasty dust. Moving to the AFC West, let's talk about the Denver Broncos running back RJ Harvey. Sean Payton has said that it's too early to project the running back depth chart here in Denver, but from the outside looking in, I do think it is still Harvey's job. Dobbins can be involved, and I've been quoted this offseason saying that I think this could be very similar to the Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara type of rookie year situation that Sean Payton had there in New Orleans, and I think Harvey is by far the most talented back in this room, and if he does have a good camp and a good preseason, I think Harvey is going to be hard to keep off of the football field. Let's go to the Kansas City Chiefs. I got Isiah Pacheco as the player to watch. The Dynasty community has faded Pacheco to oblivion this offseason, and I personally think that that is going to be a mistake. Andy Reid has spoken about how Pacheco looks tremendous right now, and we forget that the only competition for Pacheco in this offense is old-ass Kareem Hunt, often injured Elijah Mitchell, and a 7th-round running back that I do like in Brashard Smith, but let's be real, the competition isn't that good for the Kansas City Chiefs and Isiah Pacheco. At the end of the day, I think this is Pacheco's job to lose. I think he has double-digit touchdown potential in this offense, and of course, there's still risk with Isiah Pacheco, but he is dirt cheap, and I feel like a crazy person standing on Pacheco Island by myself, waving my hand saying, please, please, please take the value on Isiah Pacheco, but I really do think that the community is going to be wrong on this one, and this is a flag plant for me going into the NFL season, and I think he is the perfect contender buy. Let's go to the Las Vegas Raiders. I want to talk about Dante Thornton Jr. Thornton is a much different receiver than some of the other guys in this offense like Jacoby Myers and Jack Besh, who profile as short yardage possession receivers. Meanwhile, Thornton is a speedy, vertical threat type of wide receiver that I do think can get downfield and make plays with his size and his athleticism. Early reports have indicated that this is showing up in practice as well, and Thornton has been one of Geno's favorite targets. He has a wide range of outcomes, but in Dynasty, he is somebody to watch, especially due to his unique skill set for this current Raiders roster. Let's go to the Los Angeles Chargers. I got Omarion Hampton as the player to watch. Hampton is a player that I felt like was more of a second half star than he was an instant contributor here for 2025 due to Najee Harris, but there have been reports about a recent 4th of July fireworks accident that has injured Najee Harris's eye, and it's rumored that it could potentially affect Najee's availability for training camp. If this is the case, I find it hard to believe that Hampton, opening camp with first team reps, is going to be relegated back to a backup role when Najee shows up, so this is definitely something something that I think we need to keep an eye on, because if Najee's injury lets the rookie show out early in camp, I do think Hampton is likely to run away with the job before week 1 even gets here. Let's go to the NFC East. I want to talk about the Dallas Cowboys and Jaylen Blue. The Dallas Cowboys running back job seems to be one of the most open position competitions in all of football right now. We've had reports about how Javonte Williams feels like he's kind of getting back to normal, that Miles Sanders could potentially be the running back 1 here, and how Jaylen Blue probably runs away with this job by the end of season. I don't know if any of those are true, but what I do think is going to happen is we probably get clarity on this once preseason comes around and we see all of these guys get some real reps against some real competition. But several beat reporters are predicting that Jaylen Blue will be the guy to own by the end of the year, and I agree. I do think that he has the most juice in this room, and I do think that even though he doesn't profile as a 3-down guy, he's probably going to be the guy that's the most fantasy football relevant, so I am going to be watching him closely just to see how quickly he can start demanding some touches here in this offense. Let's go to the New York Giants. I want to talk about Cam Scatterbo. The New York Giants used a 4th-round pick on Cam earlier this offseason, and he profiles as a guy that can do it all for the Giants if they get the confidence to hand over the keys to this running back room to him. Now that said, Tyrone Tracy Jr., he was a breakout player for the Giants in 2024, and I don't see him just rolling over and giving away the job. This is going to be an interesting positional battle to follow, because I do think that both of these guys have the ability to be the lead dog in this offense come week 1, so it's likely going to come down to training camp performances on who's going to get the nod. Let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. I want to talk about running back Will Shipley. I think it's hard to find a player to watch for Philly because this team does feel like everything is kind of just back to business after winning the Super Bowl there in 2024. But if there was one place I think that there would be some uncertainty, it is probably going to be that running back 2 position behind Saquon Barkley. It's no secret that he is coming off of a very, very elite season, monster year overall for Saquon, but it's also no secret that he's dealt with injury in the past. I do think right now it is Shipley and AJ Dillon who are going to be the 2 guys competing behind Saquon, and if there was an injury to Barkley, somebody in this backfield is going to get some touches, so I will be watching to see who gets the reps, because this could be a very under the radar type of stash as an injury handcuff in a very good offense with a very good offensive line. Let's go over to the Washington Commanders. I want to watch Terry McLaurin, and the reason why is because McLaurin has been holding out of all offseason workouts so far this year in an effort to secure a new contract extension with Washington. It is still to be seen if McLaurin shows up for camp, as this is a very similar situation to the Brandon Ayuk situation last year, and that said, I don't expect Terry to miss any regular season games, at least not right now, but at this time, we obviously would like to see Terry McLaurin get on the football field and start working again with quarterback Jaden Daniels, who's going to be going into the 2nd year of his NFL career. Let's go to the NFC North. I'm going to start with the Chicago Bears and Rome Odunze. Odunze has had a steady drumbeat all offseason, and he is deemed as one of the most obvious 2nd-year breakout candidates for fantasy. We are just 1 year removed from him being a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, and new head coach Ben Johnson has continued to speak praise of Odunze, and I do think he's a player that I'm going to be watching very closely because he has a chance here to skyrocket into fantasy football superstardom, assuming that this offense and Caleb Williams improves under Ben Johnson. Let's talk about the Detroit Lions and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra underwent a cleanup procedure on his knee this offseason, and it is being reported that he will be ready for the start of training camp. Now, this news did kind of catch us by surprise earlier in the summer, and those summer/training camp injuries can be concerning for early season production, like I said earlier, but if he is indeed on the football field and he is healthy at the start of camp and made a full recovery, I do think we're going to get another wide receiver 1 season from Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm just keeping an eye on this because I don't want to get surprised again, because this first report did catch us by surprise earlier in the summer. Let's go to the Green Bay Packers. I want to talk about Matthew Golden, their rookie wide receiver. The Green Bay Packers, they finally decided to use a 1st-round pick on the wide receiver position this year by drafting Matthew Golden in the 1st round of the NFL draft. It has also been reported that Matthew Golden and Jordan Love immediately began to gel in the offseason practices. Now, the Packers offense has been lacking a go-to pass catcher since Devontae Adams left town, and if Golden can keep clicking with Love early on in camp, he could be in position to push for the Packers wide receiver 1 job as early as week 1. Let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings. I'm watching Jordan Mason. Now, JJ McCarthy is by far the player that I am the most excited to watch as a fan, but for fantasy, I do think that this running back room in Minnesota is going to be very interesting to follow. Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell has said that running back Jordan Mason is going to be a major complement to Aaron Jones in this backfield, and emphasized that he thinks Jones does better in a 1A, 1B backfield structure. Now, that said, Jones is on the wrong side of the running back age cliff and could lose the goal line work to Mason, which could really hurt his fantasy football value, and Mason is probably one of the better committee/handcuff backs to roster in 2025 because of this offense and Jones's injury history. Let's go to the NFC South. I want to talk about the Atlanta Falcons and Kyle Pitts. Earlier in the offseason, we had some pretty notable trade rumors coming out of Atlanta expressing that the Falcons may be looking to move on from tight end Kyle Pitts hits. Since the NFL draft, it does feel like those have cooled down just a little bit, but that doesn't mean that Atlanta might not feel the same way as they did before. It feels like we've been saying it for years now, but this does feel like a pivotal year for Pitts, who is in a contract year and who has slowly fallen behind guys like London, Bijan, and Mooney in the receiver pecking order in recent years. Let's go to the Carolina Panthers. I want to talk about Tetairoa McMillan. While I don't expect the Panthers to be a top-tier offense in 2025, Ted McMillan was a favorite of mine in this year's rookie draft process, and I do think that the Carolina Panthers offense is a great place for him to make him an immediate impact player for your Dynasty fantasy football teams. Now, T-Mac has a real shot at 130 targets as a rookie, and I do think he could end up being a weekly starter for us come the second half of the year, and I'd love to see him keep clicking with Bryce in camp so he can come out of the gates hot here during the regular season. Let's go to the New Orleans Saints. I want to talk Tyler Shuck, and this is the one team so far that really has nothing that gets me excited. I really don't care to watch anything from the Saints in training camp, but if I was forced to pick something here, I guess it would be the quarterback battle. It does sound like it's an open competition, but most of us expect it to be Shuck that wins the job, and Shuck will have to be an outlier if any of these Saints wide receivers want a chance to severely outperform their ADPs, but the likelihood is that this team is going to be landing a top 5 pick in the NFL draft and probably selecting the quarterback of the future in 2026, and it's probably not Tyler Shuck. So let's go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I do think Emeka Egbuka is the player to watch. I was really impressed with Egbuka as a prospect, and he did feel like probably one of the most pro-ready wide receivers in this entire draft. He landed in a great offensive environment here in Tampa Bay, and I'll be watching to see if he impresses Bucs coaches early on while Godwin is still returning from that ankle injury. If Egbuka is who I think he is and who the Bucs think he is, he may be tough to keep off the football field as a rookie, even if it is a little bit of a crowded offense, and the reality of the situation is we should probably already be trying to buy Egbuka before he starts to impress people even more than he already has. Let's go to the NFC West. I want to talk about the Arizona Cardinals and Marvin Harrison Jr. This one should be obvious. Earlier we discussed Rome Odunze as one of the more obvious second-year breakouts. Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably the most obvious breakout of them all. All of the reports that we have heard regarding Marvin feeling more confident, putting on muscle, and better chemistry with Kyler Murray point to the wide receiver that is probably locked into a breakout here in 2025. Marv may have disappointed dynasty managers in 2024 after making people see Malik Neighbors, Ladd McConkey, and some of these other rookies give you some massive rookie wide receiver seasons, but Marvin has the opportunity to right his wrongs here in 2025 and enter that elite stratosphere that we thought he could hit as a rookie. Let's go to the Los Angeles Rams. I'm going to be watching Jarquez Hunter. A lot of the conversation for the Rams over the last few months has been how Kyren Williams and the Rams are looking to get a contract extension done that will lock Kyren in as the running back of the future here for the Los Angeles Rams. Now, while Kyren certainly deserves it, and I do view him as the running back to roster here in Los Angeles, I do think that the running back 2 battle between Hunter and Corum will be one that we should probably be watching pretty closely. There is a chance that whoever wins that job as the RB2 becomes one of the most valuable handcuffs in football, and Hunter would be my pick of the two based on his analytic profile, but the running back 2 battle is going to be a thing to watch here for the Los Angeles Rams. Let's go to the 49ers. I'm watching Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall, he tweaked his hamstring in spring practices, which was reported to keep him as a limited participant until training camp started. So now that training camp is here, I would like to see a healthy Ricky Pearsall on the football field. He has a great opportunity in front of him with guys like Ayuk recovering from his injury, Debo now in Washington, and Juwan Jennings, who's going to be holding out for a new contract and also requested a trade. Plus, when you account for the good stretch of games that Pearsall put together at the end of the year, I do think Pearsall has a great opportunity here if he's healthy, where he can grab a lot of targets early on for the San Francisco 49ers, and he is also a player that could break out here in year 2. Let's go to the Seattle Seahawks. I have Kenneth Walker as the player to watch. When Kenneth Walker's on the football field, he is awesome for fantasy football and for our Dynasty fantasy football teams. However, health has always been an issue for Kenneth Walker, and he has been limited already this summer with an ankle injury. Walker is claiming that he should be fine, but I think Walker is a riskier asset than we'd like to admit, and making sure he is 100% healthy in training camp will be a key indicator as to whether or not we can trust him early on here in 2025. So I know we just got through that very quickly. I know some of that was probably really rapid fire, but that is 32 players that I'm going to be watching as we head into NFL training camp. If you liked today's video, hit the like button. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel and go join our free Discord. We do have a free Discord linked in the description, helping you guys with your fantasy football teams 24/7, 365. But that is all I have for you guys today, so I will see you on our next episode. But until then, peace out.